weight loss is possible. You are just running on a different lane, and you cannot compare yourself to someone that doesn't have PCOS, doesn't have insulin resistance, doesn't have Hashimoto's. You have to compare yourself to you and improvements on you. And especially in the first 3 months, because for that insulin resistance to improve, you've got to give it at least 3 months.
You're listening to Stream, the mental health and business podcast, and I'm your host, Marisa Tully. Now, today's episode is led by our guest host and favorite fitness coach, Ash Iovino, also known as FitMom. Ash chats to registered dietitian nutritionist Minette Roth about hormones and weight loss. Now, as I'm personally going through some health hurdles and experiencing hormone imbalances myself, this episode was so incredibly helpful and insightful, and I can't wait for you to tune in. And then on a fitness front, I'm excited to share with you that Ash has decided to run her biggest program to date, the FitMom Strong Challenge, for the very last time this year. If you're needing a little end of the year kick up the butt and want to get yourself out of that rut, sorry, I know it rhymes, then join the 6-week challenge, which includes access to the FitMom app, FitMom Strong workouts, a private interactive community, and ebooks and guides that truly have the power to change the way you look at weight loss and quit those shitty fad diets for life. Stream subscribers get 10% off, so if you're interested in knowing more about FitMom Strong and wanting to join the challenge, then head on over to fitmom.online and use the code STREAM10 at checkout and join the challenge starting on the 7th of November. Okay, so let's get into today's conversation with Ash and Minette.
So it is so nice to finally connect with you, Minette. I've been following your Instagram account for quite a while now, and I always just find that I'm so drawn to accounts that are educational and actually add value to my life. And that is one thing that always stands out with you. I feel like whatever you share, people can actually take it and walk away with it and actually try and implement it. So I just want to say thank you for your content. I know how much time it takes. Yeah. and I absolutely love it. It really does add so much value to my life. And I'm really excited to chat about this topic today because I started my business FitMom 7.5 years ago. I've coached hundreds of women. I'm now an online coach, coaching one-on-one as well as launching challenges. And I think the most frustrating position to be in as a coach is when women are implementing all the things that I preach and tell them to do, and they're hitting their protein targets and their resistance training and they are getting their steps in and they are hydrating and then they're still not seeing any weight shift or any centimeters drop. And obviously that for them, then they're making no progress. It's a very unmotivating position to be in, and it's very hard as a coach. So today's topic, female hormones and weight loss, is just something that I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And I'm just so excited to pick your brain and to educate people on actually how powerful your hormones really are.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. I can identify with you. It's very disappointing for me as well as a healthcare professional, where you can see a patient is actually implementing everything that you're giving them. And you know they're in a calorie deficit and they are exercising and they feel that they're doing well. And for them then to get on the scale and see the number not shift, and my heart breaks just as much as theirs. And I think as a coach, it's also to take on the perspective that you often feel like you're doing something wrong.
Yeah,
that you're like,
completely.
What am I missing? Did I not calculate it correctly? Or am I not giving her enough of this or enough of that? And at the end of the day, that's just another example of why it is so important to remember that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to nutrition, to working out, to losing weight. You have to sometimes dig a little deeper, go into the detail to get the right plan for you. And it's so important to be at the right team as well. Might it be your personal trainer, your dietitian, your doctor, your endo, whoever it is, for them to communicate with each other as well, to get you to goal in a sustainable way that's not harmful to your organ health or anything like that. So hormonal health is a hot topic under women, especially after you've had your babas. It's often the time where women start looking at hormones and being interested in, okay, but what are my hormones doing? And when it comes to nutrition, from my perspective, the typical hormones I would see in my office and work with is obviously first and foremost insulin when it comes to insulin resistance. So sometimes your insulin isn't actually used to diagnose insulin resistance. It has to be a waist circumference that's larger than 80 to 88 centimeters. So that's a quick test that you can do. You have to have that marker. And then you have to have 3 out of the following 4. You either need to have a high sugar, a high blood pressure, a high triglyceride, or a low HDL cholesterol. HDL cholesterol is your good cholesterol. So if you meet that criteria, you probably have insulin resistance, and we've got to do something about it because it impacts your weight loss journey. And the other hormones I work with is thyroid, hyperthyroidism, and also often Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease, which causes hyperthyroidism, and which obviously also affects your weight, often accompanied with insulin resistance as well. And then also cortisol, which is a stress hormone. Yes.
Who isn't stressed?
I know, right? That's what's so important for people in general, not just women, but to practice healthy coping mechanisms for stress on a daily basis. You cannot pour from an empty cup. I've got most of my market of my clients and my patients are mums who are very driven and have a career going and don't have the time of day to spend on themselves. And I have this conversation with them in the office where I 100% tell them, I'm going to make you the most selfish person alive, because this is what it's going to take for you to understand that your health is now our number one priority. Because if you don't have your health, what are the kids going to do? If you can't take care of it. So you have to prioritize your health, and you have to make a little bit of a mind shift with that. And then, of course, there is PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is also very, very common. And that comes with insulin resistance. It comes with high androgen levels, which is a steroid hormone that promotes more masculine characteristics, little hair growth on the chin area. You also have an irregular cycle with that. Lots of women battle with sugar cravings. They don't sleep at night. And the last one is menopause, where you have disorders within the estrogen and progesterone axis, which is also an important period in people's lives. And it's really important for women at that time to really dive into what it means and how they can address it as soon as possible, because it affects work life, it affects your relationships, it affects your libido. And if you get the right help at the right time, you can spare yourself from those difficulties.
And in terms of a client coming to you, and you'll do obviously an assessment in your first session with them. And then if you pick up, so say the circumference of the waist, or do you then give them a plan to follow? And if there's no response, then send them for bloods, or how does it work? What is your sort of step-by-step approach if you are suspecting there is a hormonal element or imbalance to it?
I want to say 99% of my patients go for bloods first consults. So I do standard bloods first consults, because I am definitely not the first stop. You have probably tried to lose weight with other programs or been somewhere else, or I'm definitely not. I'm rarely the first stop. They've tried and then they've come to me. So a majority of the case, I do see insulin resistance. It is also a field of interest for me as well. Insulin resistance, any type of hormonal imbalances with PCOS as well as, and Hashimoto's specifically, where you have the hypothyroidism. So majority of our patients do battle with these sort of disorders. So, and it's also important just to remember that weight loss is possible. You are just running on a different lane, and you cannot compare yourself to someone that doesn't have PCOS, doesn't have insulin resistance, doesn't have Hashis. You have to compare yourself to you and improvements on you. And especially in the first 3 months, because for that insulin resistance to improve, you've got to give it at least 3 months on the right supplementation, on the good diet. And that's often when I have the conversation with my patients where I tell them, let's now focus on other success markers aside from the scale. For the next 3 months, you're going to forget about the scale. You're not going to weigh yourself. I'm not going to weigh you. What are we going to do? We're going to focus on health. We're going to focus on energy levels. We're going to focus on your mood, your libido, your sleep quality. All of those things are just as important.
But that's also why it's so important, I think, for people who are embarking on a wellness or weight loss journey on their own, and they're trucking away thinking they're doing everything that they can and nothing's happening. It's so important for them to have this awareness that there could be underlying things that are making any kind of progress hard, but there are things that you can do, and it doesn't have to be starvation to get to your goal.
And that's going to make it worse.
100%. And people often just don't have the right coach or health professional guiding them from a patient's point of view. Like, as you say, how much time it actually takes. People also forget how long it took to get to the point where they've actually sought the help. But then they want in 6 weeks, they want the fix. And I think that's why it's so important that probably after 3 months, their body's only just ready to actually then start losing the weight. And then I think there's also such an attachment for women to the number on the scale associated with the progress.
That's also why it helps to do bloods for me personally as a success marker itself. So I repeat bloods 3 monthly, usually, depending on what we tested, but usually it's every 3 months. And so I can use that and go, okay, fine. In the past 3 months, you having PCOS and hashies, maybe we've only lost 5 kgs, but your cholesterol has normalized, your insulin's now normal, your vitamin D level is where it needs to be, your inflammation has reduced. How are you feeling? How are you getting up in the morning? And then they'll tell me, I'm actually feeling so much better. I'm getting up out of bed without feeling like it's a drag. My gut health is good. I'm having a good poop. Those things are important. And you just, as a coach, I would definitely give people the tip that try and get them off the scale. Weighing yourself every day is not a thing. Your weight fluctuates so much, and we'll talk about like weight fluctuations on your cycle even. But it's you have to, if you're a numbers person, then make bloods your thing, because we as health professionals, as training coaches, most of us are actually trying to improve your overall health, and that needs to be the topic of conversation, not but I haven't lost weight. Oh, but what about my weight? Did I lose weight? How much fat have I lost?
The driver is health.
Yes, the driver is health, and you've got to compare yourself to only you with that regards, because no one has your makeup, no one's got your environment, no one has got your taste buds. So you have to take all of those things into consideration.
No, 100%. A lot of my ladies struggle who do have a hormone imbalance. One of the most common symptoms seems to be hormonal belly fat. And is that what you're talking about in terms of the waist circumference?
Yes, so that is called visceral fats. So it's the fats around your organs. So if I can show you, I'm sure you've seen Mr. Fat Baby.
Oh, I love your fat baby.
I love him. People sometimes are grossed out by this guy, but I'm so into him.
How much does he weigh?
He's a 2.2 in volume. Okay. Yeah, it's nice to just see the visual, because some woman would also say, oh, I've only lost 2 kgs. I'm like, can you please hold this for me? Can I pack it around you again? Walk around. Can you feel how heavy this is? It's like, it's a massive difference. And for me, as someone with a science background, it's very cool that your body can get rid of this and it doesn't go anywhere. You don't lose your fat through poo. You're not going to poo it out. Through fat oxidation, it's burnt, and you breathe through urine and breathing and sweating it out. So for me, it's amazing to see how, and the actual math about it is, that's why it's so important to drink water as well. For every 100 grams of fat that you burn, your body uses 107 milliliters of water as the end product. And you wee it out, breathe it out, sweat it out. So it's so important to meet your water goals, to meet your weight loss goals. And so this fat, it looks exactly like this, and it sits around your organs. And it's harder to get rid of because it's the last fat to basically move. But if you think about it practically, the fat underneath your skin, which is called subcutaneous fat, there's muscle over it, so there's more movement when you exercise. But inside of your belly, your organs are not moving when you're working out. It's like hopping around, but it's not physically, it's not like a bicep muscle contracting. So it's harder to get rid of. And this is the fat that increases the risk for chronic diseases later in life. So diabetes, hypertension, heart disease. And it's often the fat that is associated with specifically insulin resistance, high cortisol levels as well. And this is definitely a health marker for me as well with patients. Is I pop them on the in-body composition analysis machine, and I get reading to see, cool, where we're sitting at in terms of this. And I use this as a marker of success. And on top of centimeters, on top of gut health and all those things, you should have like 10 success markers once you start a journey. You cannot you're just going to set yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah, completely. It's I can't believe that weighs only 2 kgs. I mean, it's as you say, like and then just from a first steps point of view, to address the hormonal issues. I mean, I suppose it depends on if it is insulin resistance, depending on, or cortisone, or like, if you need to cortisol, if you need to I mean, stress management, all of that kind of thing. But from a dietary point of view, there are obviously certain things that you can do to help you on your journey. And are those things going to create a balance then, or do you still need more help, or does it depend on the severity?
So the first step, if you're suspecting any hormonal imbalances, is, for example, if you end up in my office and you suspect hormonal imbalances, I test your bloods, and there's certain nutritional markers that I test associated with these hormonal imbalances. I can also test your hormones. However, I will probably refer you to an endocrinologist, or if you have a really good relationship with your GP or a functional medicine doctor or so forth, you can also go to them and see whether or not it's necessary to go to the endo. In my practice specifically, I do work with endocrinologists because it's their game. They work with hormones, so they are the experts in terms of how to increase or decrease certain levels. And you have to remember that you can't just replace one hormone and that's it. All of the hormones affect each other.
Yeah, no, completely. They're all like your whole body is linked somehow.
Yes.
And then in terms of natural supplementation, I always sort of as a standard think omega-3s, magnesium. I mean, living in England, definitely vitamin D. But are there any others that your standard general patient that you would put on, what are your go-to supplements, and then what are over and above for hormonal stuff?
So it depends on the condition. There's specific nutritional recommendations for every specific condition. So, for example, if we take insulin resistance, which is quite common with women who battle with weight, inositol is a supplement that really helps, but you need it at the right dosage. You need a high dosage. It doesn't help you taking inositol in little tiny teeny mini dosages.
Okay.
So you can't go into our favorite little green pharmacy store and and have a look at all of the beautiful packaging and decide, I like this pink bottle, and gooi in and let's go. You have to look at the dosages. So it's those recommendations are made based on my dietary recommendations, also the endos. But so I would start looking at inositols. Omega-3 is also very good. So omega-3 is an essential fatty acid, which means your body can't make it. You have to get it from food. And I know from experience that no one is eating enough fatty fish to get that in. So your fatty fishes, for example, salmon, trout, not canned tuna, like fresh tuna, sardines, pilchards, mackerel, herring. And these aren't fish that I know we consume enough of. So I often, it depends also on, there's a marker called CRP. You can either do a normal or ultra sensitive that you can test to see where they're ranking in terms of inflammation and would they benefit from the supplement. Because you also don't want to wear a bunch of pills at someone and to drink it, because it becomes a lot, eh? So it's really about sustainability. You need to take that into account when prescribing these supplements. And so if you're looking at someone that's battling, especially with obesity, right? Where obesity itself is a disease condition. It's a multifaceted, complex disease, and often comes with what's called low-grade chronic inflammation. And the easiest way to explain that is to think of like a little fault fire burning in the background of your body. And whenever you have a refined carb like pasta, pizza, cereals, refined white breads, croissants, cookies, or you're having too much saturated fats from the fats like on a choppy or double cream everything, then it's like dropping a little grenade on your beautiful little salt fire and it just explodes. So from a dietary perspective, reduce that by increasing your intake of omega-3 fatty acids, which we just spoke about. And then also pushing up your fiber content is super important.
Yes.
It's actually, dietary fiber has been indicated as medical nutritional therapy for weight loss. So the Canadian obesity guidelines that came out a couple of years ago state dietary fiber as one of the key things that you've got to get right when you're trying to lose weight. And a lot of women are scared of carbs. And they don't
tell me about it.
They're
so scared to and all that rubbish also about, oh no, well, I won't eat carbs at night then, or it's just, it drives me insane.
And so that also, we're going to talk about that more, but that also comes from women relationship with food, where they simply cannot look at food other than, is that going to make me fat? Is that going to
or good or bad? That's so bad. Demonized.
It's important to remember that you can have carbs. Yes, they need to be whole grain, high in fiber. And quick examples of that would be like barley, bulgur wheat, oats, bran. Unfortunately, you can't meet your dietary fiber intake through veg and fruit alone. It's too low. Like the average, more or less, the average fiber content of veg would be like 4 grams per 100 grams, where if you look at bulgur, it's 18.3. If you look at bran, it's 27. So it's much higher in fiber. And you have to, we as women, we need to eat at least 25 grams of fiber per day. And if you're constipated, you need even more. So that I would also take into account. And then there's this cool new hot topic of conversation that reduces inflammation as well, which is broccoli sprouts. I don't know if you've seen it or heard about it.
No.
Basically, it's difficult to find a little farmer. I've got one farmer in Joburg and one in Cape Town that I'm using for my patients. And you can make it yourself, but it's a labor of love, because it takes a lot of effort, because you have to rinse and water them in the kitchen. You grow them basically in like a glass jar. And if you have a certain amount of broccoli sprouts a day, you can get the same therapeutic dosage of something called sulforaphane. And sulforaphane is this amazing antioxidant that reduces inflammation. And they sell sulforaphane in capsule form at the same dosage for like $2,000 a month. And you can get it. If you make your own broccoli sprouts, it's obviously you're going to spend some money, get in the glass jar and the sprouting going, but you can save some money.
And there's a very, very powerful anti-inflammatory.
Yes, it's an antioxidant that activates a pathway called NRF2, but it really, really helps to downregulate inflammation, and that downregulation also plays a critical role in estrogen metabolism specifically. So there's certain genetic reports that I run with my patients, and there's an estrogen report called DNA estrogen, which tells you how are you metabolizing your estrogen according to your genetics. Yes. And then certain things you can also do from that perspective.
So does it help you sort of metabolize it all?
Yes.
I mean, I'm very, very careful when I use the word detox, because I don't necessarily believe in it. But does it help you sort of detox the excess estrogen? Put it that way.
You've got different pathways that uses estrogen to metabolize it fully. And depending on certain genetic markers that different women have, it goes into a certain pathway, right? But there's a preferred pathway. So pathway A is where we want to go. But say, for example, you've got genetic marker C. That means that pathway is not going to work. It goes to the next one. Problem with the next pathway, it doesn't metabolize fully. So you can then, according to the literature, you can then take certain nutrients in a certain dosage to help that process further. And this is an example of you've been dealt a bad hand with the genetics, but there's something you can do about it.
Okay. And how would you know if you aren't a good what would you say, estrogen metabolizer? How would you know? What are the symptoms?
So it depends. I would probably work on bloods and genetic reports for that, and that the endo can explain to you in much further detail. So I would get a patient back from the endo where they've said, this patient is estrogen dominant. I have a genetic report. I know exactly how her pathway runs. I know what to give her the best chance to achieve what she wants to achieve, because all we can do is give it our best.
That's all we can do.
That's all we can do. And that's all people can also do as women. And cannot also, I find so many women compare their bodies to their 16-year-old body, the body they had when they were so young. And you've had kids, you're a woman. It's unrealistic. You need to set realistic expectations for yourself.
Completely.
And it's super, super important. So in terms of the other supplements, just to give you an example, because it really is that intricate that it's per disease condition, per with hormonal imbalance. PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. So I mentioned insulin resistance, and I mentioned that you can use inositol, which is cool. But even for example, now you have PCOS, which has insulin resistance and other things going on, and they wouldn't benefit from just a normal inositol supplement. They needed in a 40-to-1 ratio of myo-inositol to d-chiro-inositol. So it is that intricate, it is that detailed. There is no general approach. And so you need 4,000 milligrams of myo-inositol with 100 milligrams of d-chiro for you to benefit from that supplement.
But again, that what you're saying now just really runs home for me how important it is to rope in a professional, because you're not going to know any of this no matter how much Dr. Google helps you.
No, you need to knock on the right doors to get into the right rooms and be with the right people, and a team really works best. For me, with my personal trainers, my endos, my doctors, I've developed a little network for myself where we have gotten along so well to the point that I can literally WhatsApp them while I'm in and be like, can I please send this patient to you? Do you have availability? This is what's cooking. This is what I'm going to do. This is the supplementation I'm going to give. What are you doing? And then
100%.
So that you are really taken care of.
Yeah, it's so important.
Otherwise, you end up giving up because you try so many different things that don't work. I've even had, I don't know, there's a certain, just coming to mind now, there's a certain clinic here in Joburg that does these injections. And unfortunately, I've had so many of those patients in my office, and generally they battle the most to lose weight because they've taken hormonal injections to lose weight, and now the hormones are so out of whack that they simply cannot. They really they lose very slowly, and it's frustrating for me and for them, and it's really difficult to have that conversation to tell them, look, the things you've tried in your past, the yo-yo dieting, the extreme starvation, it does have long-term implications. It is.
And that's the hard part, is saying to them, right, we're going to spend the next 6 months fixing, healing, before we focus on the goal.
Yes.
And I think that's the clincher, is that when people do come, it's very hard then, because they are the type of people, if they've been to the fat clinic for the injection, sorry to call it that, they're the type of people who want the quick fix.
Yes, no, definitely. And you have to, again, have realistic expectations. My whole game is getting people to lose weight in a way that they can sustain it. Because to me, and this is the way I convince them, if you eat food that you enjoy, that's nice, and you feel good, and it doesn't take too much time, you really like it, and you are only losing 200 grams a week. That is 200 grams that's all for the rest of your life, because you are not going to go back to what you were doing before because you like what you're doing now, right? Why would you go back? That's self-sabotage. Then it's a psychological issue. So I really do try, when I do plans, I really, really look at, what do you like to eat? Can I find a good balance between what you like to eat, what I know is good for your health, and what you have time for? And it's a balancing act between those things.
Absolutely.
And you have to take into account. So the majority of my patients aren't like women with no issues that just want to lose 5 kgs. Its majority is metabolic disorders, diabetes, chronic diseases, hormonal imbalances, PCOS, insulin resistance, thyroid disorders, people who have more than one characteristics that's getting in the way of them achieving their goal. And we have to bridge that in a way that also heals their relationship with food. Because oftentimes these patients have become so frustrated in the past that they have done hectic thini to lose the weight, which has damaged their relationship with food. And they no longer look at food through a lens of quality, but only quantity. And I am going to bring up calorie counting, because
it's a big one.
It's a big trend right now. It's been going on for about 2 years here. I think it's going to fizzle out soon, because what it's forcing people to do is checking on your phone. Can I eat this? How much can I eat this? And not going, should eat fish, good for my skin health. Should have bulgur wheat, great for my digestion. Have my 4 cups of veg a day. Why? Because I need it.
It's neglecting the nutrient aspect.
Yes, and it's forcing you to only look at quantity. And
completely.
I find that younger women that go, according to the app, I've got 100 calories left for the day. Let's have some Wonder Bars. And that's like not your health. It's just not going to help. Like you have to, if you want to now play with a budget of calories, spend them wisely and spend them on nutrient dense food. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with deficiencies, disordered relationship with food, over-restriction, indulgence. I think
that's why I think it's so important that it is a powerful educational tool to a degree, but if you do have a history of disordered eating, absolutely steer clear. And it needs to be coupled with education that, like, actually 90% of your diet should be whole, nourishing, nutrient dense food which your body uses as fuel. You can't now just make up your calories based on grenade bars. So I think that's also where there's a massive gap, is that then people, as you say, just see it as a calorie budget and then starve to save for their pizza in the evening or whatever it may be. And then there's a very fine, dangerous line. And I completely agree with you.
And I think you need to know what type of person you are. So if you are the type of person that becomes obsessive, that is a little bit OCD, stay clear, because you take that route down too far, too deep. And I have patients that I force them to delete the app off their phone once they enter my office. And I tell them, we're completely doing this in a different way. I want you to understand that food is your friend. It fuels your body for energy. It gives you so much, and you need it for living, and to feel good, you need to eat. And I find, I don't know if you feel the same, maybe with the training of your clients, where you see them often being super, super good during the week, and then a weekend comes.
100%. Self-sabotage Friday to Sunday, start fresh Monday.
Yes, it's a trend. And I often see that as well, where they almost over-restrict during the week and then overindulge on the weekend. And you will not see your health goals like that. It is not good for your body to go through that hectic ups and downs, to get those intense sugar spikes on the weekend and come crashing down, and you barely see yourself on the Monday out of guilt. It's not good.
And you're going to do that if you restrict so heavily Monday to Thursday or Monday to Friday.
100%. So I think the most important point that I generally want to make to people, and what really drives me, is that food is more than a number, and you can cook healthy and enjoy it. It is not dry chicken breast and broccoli.
Completely.
You can't, it takes, it's what we can't do is, my biggest fear in life is a picky eater. So
you don't have kids yet.
No,
the universe might throw you out.
I'm going to have a tray of vegetables ready at every dinner. And it takes 15 food exposures.
Yeah.
Before a child accepts the food. So I'm going to do that 15 times.
Yeah, you might have to do it 30 times. But I've got my oldest and my youngest are very good eaters. They eat everything. And my middle child, I'm so glad his role model was his older brother who eats everything, because I don't take his nonsense. But yeah, even now still he says he doesn't eat this, he doesn't eat, I still dish it. Still just put it there. I'm like, you just and I know in time, I mean, we all go through phases of things we didn't like when we were little, but now I eat absolutely everything. And that's my goal. That's what I'm striving for.
Good. That's probably why they end up being such good eaters, is because you didn't give up.
No, it's a huge priority for me. If you don't want to eat the delicious, wholesome food, I'm not going to then give you cereal for dinner. I'm a mean mom.
My poor husband was the guy that sat for 3 hours in front of his peas, and his mom
finished what's in front of you
and eat your peas, and he just sat there until like 12 o'clock at night by himself in his little stalky and had to eat the peas.
Well, at least he's married you now, and I'm sure you're making him a wholesome, delicious food that doesn't include peas.
No, it doesn't. He still doesn't eat the peas. He didn't crack under the pressure, that one.
Just in terms of, I mean, I know there's also, when we eat like highly palatable food, so sugar, there is like a dopamine spike, and that can create a cycle of then wanting it again because it feels good in the moment. Just in general, because it might seem obvious, but what foods, I mean, obviously highly sugary foods are going to make us want to eat more sugar, but are there certain foods that can help us keep cravings at bay, that you could recommend, and ones that will make us feel less sluggish and more motivated? And are there certain foods that we should, I hate the word avoid, but yeah, keep to a minimum?
I like the word limit.
You limit, totally.
So there's actually 3 pathways that regulate food intake when you eat. So the first is like your satiety, hunger. You're actually hungry. Your brain tells you, let's eat. You eat. The food falls into your tummy, stretches it out, and then a signal is sent via the vagal nerve to the hypothalamus area of your brain, which tells you, thank you for eating. You are full, stop eating. And that's the satiety cue. And then you have a second area in your brain that regulates food intake, and that's called the mesolimbic area. And here we have the hedonic pathway of food reward, which is when your taste buds eat something sweet, it stimulates the release of dopamine, which is your pleasure hormone. It's the same feeling you have when you have sex. It's like, yay. And it asks your brain the simple question, should I do that again? And the answer is always yes, because your brain's just like, this is good, let's do it again. And that's where the hand goes back into the cookie jar and back and back and back. This is the reason I cannot buy a big packet of speckled eggs. It has to be a small one, because you need to know your own limits. And so there's a third pathway that also is involved in the regulation, and that's the cognitive area. That's you making good decisions. That's you going, okay, cool. I'm not eating because I'm hungry. Why am I eating? I'm either maybe emotional, I'm upset about something, I'm stressed, or I'm bored. And then you need to manage your mind actively. Your brain is like a baby. It cannot just have what it wants as it wants it. And you need to manage your mind. This is willpower sticking in. This is discipline. This is motivation. To go, cool, I'm not going to have that cookie right now. I'm going to have it tomorrow after lunch. And then you have it tomorrow after lunch, because what you're doing is you're training your brain to not just send you an impulse and expect a result. So you're basically training your mind to stop sending you that message.
Of
sticking your hand in the cookie jar. That's the first thing. The second thing is having insulin resistance, having PCOS, having other hormonal imbalances can cause you to be more prone to sugar cravings because of disordered blood sugar regulation.
Okay.
So the most important tip I have for someone that battles with sugar craving: manage your blood sugar level. What that means, it means manage your carbohydrate intake, quantity and quality throughout the day. So you want to make sure that when you eat food, you're eating all of the macronutrients. You're having protein, carbs, and fats, because the combination of a protein and a fat with a carb slows down the glycemic response. And if it's high in fiber, it slows it down even more. So if you want to keep your blood sugar levels just like in a straight line, because when it drops, you crave sugar, you eat sugar, it spikes, and it will drop after spiking that far. And then you end up having sugar levels that do this, and that causes more sugar cravings, and it causes fat storage because it causes high insulin levels, which is a fat storage hormone. So that's the one thing. The next thing is the right supplements. So certain supplements can also aid with managing your blood sugar level, and therefore managing your sugar cravings. But I often find that healthy coping mechanisms for stress is probably the best tip. Finding out what calms you down, what brings you peace that doesn't involve food. Because we can enjoy food. We can love food, cook food, it's part of your culture, but you cannot depend on food for an emotional response. That would be considered an unhealthy relationship with food, that you becoming food dependent emotionally, which is a space a lot of women find themselves in. And it's important to go, cool, calling a friend, ranting on the phone, taking a bath, walking the dog, reading a book, those things calm me down. I am going to do all four of them now, since I'm upset, I'm trying to eat. And you actively manage your mind. And then obviously you can also always make healthier treat options. So for example, my current go-to personally is literally taking frozen mango, taking half a cup of plain low-fat yogurt, popping it in the NutriBullet or the blender, and just eating it like sorbet. And it's divine, it's sweet, it sorts you out. And it's a snack. You need fruits. You don't have to stay clear of it. And you can use fruit to soothe that little sugar craving as well, because the sugar in fruit is natural. It's part of a fiber matrix. It provides you with phytonutrients, which are anti-inflammatory, anti-aging, anti-carcinogenic, all those wonderful antioxidants in there. So you can eat fruit and lose weight. But yeah, it's important to see, to look at, cool, why am I having a sugar craving? And how can we manage it better in the future?
And your advice in terms of setting up your environment to support, like, as you say, like not buying the big bag of, like, if you want it, if you want it, do you delay the craving, or do you satisfy it with a small bag and get it over with and move on?
It depends on how hectic it is. I do try and get my patients into good habits, like, if you need chocolate every day, we can do 1 block of dark chocolate every day. Cool, sort yourself out. But if they are prone to doing more than that, and it depends on the grade as well, because you do get binge eating disorders. Therefore, you need psychological support and stuff. So that's a bit hectic. But if it's just in the house because you buy it for the kids, I would suggest get it out. Don't buy it. Keep it clean. The kids don't eat sugar every day. They can have sugar on a weekend, and you can buy the as you need it. So generally for my moms is stopping the little snack pantry section completely, because especially if you have toddlers and you give them something sweet, they don't finish it, and you're like, but you don't want to waste food, and then you end up eating with them.
That and lunch boxes, the leftover lunch boxes, and then if you haven't had time to make a big healthy lunch, then it's 4:00 and then you see you eating peanut butter sandwiches.
So I would suggest that get to know yourself and be honest. Be completely honest with yourself to say, fine, I know if I have a bag of speckled eggs at my house, it will be finished. I cannot control with
no, I'm like you. I would rather not have it, and then if I really, really want it, but go to the shops, buy the small bag and eat it. Otherwise, I love. I mean, someone brought me chuckles from South Africa recently. They'd been out, and it didn't last a day. The bag.
No. And the portion for chuckles is actually so sad. It's 5. Who only has 5 chuckles?
I know. And I mean, you're not human if you only have 5.
So, especially in the beginning, I think at a later stage, if you have the control, if your blood sugar levels are well regulated, your insulin level has dropped to normal, you no longer have those intense cravings, and you want to keep a bag of chuckles for people coming over as a little dessert or whatever, just in case. You can test to see, but you have got to be honest with yourself. You've got to look yourself in the mirror and go, am I capable of controlling myself around this specific food item?
No, it's so true.
Your goal. It's you have to set yourself up in the right environments, and that's why I love seeing couples together as well. As soon as hubby understands, because it's nothing worse than a mum really trying to lose weight, cooking healthy, and hubby's complaining about the food, or he's coming home with McDonald's, and you really like trying your best. So I love seeing couples together. I think I see so much more success with that, is to get the support, because there's no way you can cook yourself dinner, cook the kids because they picky eaters, and then a husband wants steak all the time. So everyone has to be on board.
No, 100%. It's like if you were a smoker trying to quit and then your husband keeps lighting up in front of you, like how you've got to set it up. You've got to be supported.
Definitely. It makes a massive difference.
And then just lastly, just because it's a topic that I am seeing more and more, just because of the phase of life that I'm in and the clients that I've recently taken on, some women are heading into perimenopause. And they've had their babies, and it's quite early, I suppose, like mid-40s, some even a bit earlier. But what are the signs? And then do you recommend also going to your gynae and doing your bloods and all of that?
Definitely. You can go to an endo as well. You don't have to go to the gynae, but the most common symptoms are the hot flushes, the irritability, the drop in libido, a little bit of dry atmosphere down there. And the earlier you actually get your bloods done and see where you're at and get the necessary assistance, the more you're going to spare yourself from the uncontrollable mood that you don't know what's cooking with your body, you're not feeling yourself, you're hot all the time.
And will that, if you are in perimenopause, will that affect weight loss as well?
It depends on what your levels are, but it all hormones have an effect on weight and weight gain and weight loss. So it can affect it for sure. It depends on where your levels are really at and what, where's your estrogen, where's your progesterone, because they decline, right? And then you have to get on the right, if whatever treatment you choose to do, which is totally to the discretion of the endo, the gynae, and you. It can also have an impact on weight loss, but with anything else, it is not impossible. There's very, very rare cases where you will not be able to lose weight. This is your life. Very, very. I almost want to say never, but never say never. It's very rare.
Yeah.
So
there's always something you can do.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you know what? Exercise is one of the key factors, because what ends up happening, what I see more than menopause being a blocker to losing weight, is a lack of muscle, because a lot of women, when they have their babies, they are so super, super busy, they stop exercising, and therefore they stop moving their muscle. And muscle is one of those things that if you don't use it, you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
And once you lose muscle mass, you drop your metabolism rates. And that's why a lot of women end up eating this klein bikkie, small portions, to lose weight, because their muscle mass is so low. So body weight resistance training is not only good for gaining muscle, increasing your metabolism, it's great for insulin resistance.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I couldn't agree more.
It's good. And I really, really preach in my office, and I'll probably have, to be honest, with more personal understanding once I have my babas, but I really preach that you are also important. This is your life, your family, but it's centered around you. Like, you need to take care of you.
Completely. You set the tone for everything.
Yes. And you don't want your daughter to see you neglecting yourself, because that sends her the message that, oh, when you get older, like mommy doesn't matter. Of course she matters. Everything.
Completely. And as you say, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you've got nothing to give at the end of the day, they're going to be receiving that side of you.
Yeah. No, it's very, very important.
Okay.
And I really, my biggest wish for people is to honestly look at nutrition through a lens of what can it give me instead of what is it taking away.
Completely. I love that. Thank you. It's been so wonderful to chat to you and to just pick your brain and learn from you, and just see also someone who's so passionate in a similar space. So yeah, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, it's very, very nice to meet you, and I've had a wonderful time. Thank you so much for having me.